And joining us now to give his insights is NewsNation media and political contributor Kurt Bardella. He's also the host of Kurt's Country here on NewsNation. Kurt, it is always good to see you. And this feels big and lofty, big countries blustering back and forth about tariffs. Kurt, who ultimately pays the price for all of this?
The consumers do, because ultimately what we've learned is no matter how this ends up going, the big companies, the corporations, the CEOs, the billionaire class, they're not the ones who are going to end up paying for any of this. It's going to be passed on to the consumer. And that's always been why in the past, Republicans particularly were against tariffs. They were against trade wars. They would have made the case that it always ends up backfiring and hurting the consumers, the taxpayers. And I don't expect that to be any differently. If the cost of a product goes up 25%, 30%, that cost is going to be passed on to the consumer at the grocery store, at the gas pump. And that's the political danger here for Donald Trump. If this gamble, this game of chicken really doesn't pay off, it's the American people who will be paying more. And the president spent the entirety of 2024 promising the American people that if you elect him, prices will go down. If you elect him, inflation will be a thing of the past. If you elect him, your cost of living will decrease. If people now start going to the grocery store, going to the pump, looking at their bank account and seeing that, hey, things are actually getting worse than they were a year ago, Donald Trump will be saddled with that blame.
You know, it's so interesting. Canada is the largest export market for 36 U.S. states. We know Mexico is our largest trading partner. Many U.S. companies like Ford, like General Motors, rely on Canada and Mexico for their supply chain. Canada not reacting well to this news. We see fans at sporting events are beginning to boo the U.S. national anthem. Could you see a boycott of U.S. products in these two countries coming up?
Yeah, I mean, just as Donald Trump and Republicans have made Buy America, America First a slogan, well, the same can be done in other countries like Canada. They could say, all right, Canada first, or anybody but America is kind of the direction that things are going. And I think that's the challenge of when you posture as a leader and start insulting and bullying and demeaning an entire nation and its people, well, that nation's probably not going to take too kindly to that, and they're not going to be inclined to cut you any breaks or to do you any favors. And so this is a very delicate game here. I mean, Donald Trump, better than anybody, knows the power of ego, the power of compliments versus insults. He has always erred on the side of insulting people and berating them and trying to bend them to his will. In the recent hours after these tariffs were announced, we've seen the leaders of both Mexico and Canada step forward and I think take a very confrontational tone, not taking well to the insults being hurled at them by the United States president. And so, if anything, it might harden their resolve to not meet Trump at the negotiating table or not bend to his will, because they don't want to look foolish to their people either.
Yeah, Kurt, gut check from you. We are 13 days in. I want to get your thoughts on the new DNC chair, Minnesota's Ken Martin. He is vowing to resist the Trump administration and to redefine Democratic priorities. What does resistance even look like with what the New York Times is calling Trump's flood the zone strategy?
Yeah, I think resistance needs to look actually more like a targeted, strategic and deliberate approach that centers on an overarching theme. I think the one thing Democrats have gotten really bad at, frankly, is long form storytelling. If you're going to win something, win an election and win a popularity contest, you need to tell the people what you're for more than what you're against. I think the Democrats spent way too much time in 2024 talking about what they were against, why Donald Trump would be terrible, why it would be a threat to democracy, why all these things. But they didn't do enough to articulate what they're for. And ultimately, people are going to vote about their self-interest. They want to know, what can you do for me? What can you do for my family? What can you do for my neighborhood, my community? And Democrats need to get back to telling that story and doing it in a committed, targeted, ongoing way, not just once in a while, not just a message of the week, not just, oh, we should talk about infrastructure. They need to be deliberate and they need to be consistent on it.
Kurt Bardella, always appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Have a great Sunday.